Hi, I'm Tara Rye, and I recently was asked the question, how do you pray through the Bible? What does that actually look like? Well, in order for you to understand where that question begins, this came from a former student of mine, and we'd had this discussion before, and he knew that I have prayed through the Bible for many years. When my daughter was young, I went to a conference for mothers and daughters where my friend Tracy shared at this conference that she prayed from cover to cover over her children. And then when they were in eighth grade, she gave them a Bible where she had prayed through the entire Bible over them. I went home so excited and I told my husband, we have to do this. And my husband immediately researched and found about the Heritage Bible. And it has very big columns that you can use so that you have lots of space to write. And I took the Bible and prayed first year for Michaela, and he prayed for Grant. And I began the journey. At the beginning, my goal was just to have a short prayer on each page. It wasn't meant to be really long prayers as much as just I wanted her and my daughter and my son both to know that mom and dad cared enough to pray the whole Bible. The reason is that I have found in my life that when I am praying through the Bible, I learn more about the character of God. So, one of the things that I look for when I am praying through the Bible is I look for attributes of God, the actual character of God, and the way that God interacts with the people, and the things that He says, and the things that He does, and the things that I can observe about how He is revealed in that particular Bible passage. When I pray those, I pray for an understanding to know Him in this character trait, to understand His heart in this, and for that character trait to be evident in me. I then look at the people. If I don't see something, because some passages don't actually say anything about God. So then I examine the people. What are the good things and the bad things that the people do and say? Well, obviously, if it's bad, we know we don't want to imitate that. But if it is good, that is something that I want to see in my life or in the life of the person that I am praying for. So I will take the character traits that I learn about the people and I will pray for a guard against the things that I see that are wrong. And I ask for an increase for the things that I see that are good, because we know that good things are from God. As I began this journey, I first started off praying for my daughter Michaela. Her Bible was probably the simplest one I've ever done. Well, the next year, when my son, it was time for me to pray through his Bible, he came up to me, he was really little, and he said, "Mommy, would you please draw pictures? I want art in my Bible." And so my second year of praying through the Bible, I actually asked God, don't just give me words to pray, but give me visuals. And I started drawing images to help me recall the prayer, but also for him to draw into the prayer in the heart of God. And so the next level of how I grew was actually learning how to create art based on the passages that I was reading. And some of those images still are very clear in my mind today. The first drawing I ever drew in a Bible as a prayer was in Cain and Abel, when Cain killed his brother. God said to him, "You must master the sin that is crouching at your door." And I drew this image of a door with this dark black all on the ground, as if it was knocking on the door, and that we, or Grant, myself, were on the other side and had to open it, or didn't want to open it because we had to master the sin, the things that are bad. And if Cain had done that, he would not have killed his brother. And so that it's our responsibility not to open the door up to bad things. And that visual image stays in my mind to this day, that it's in my control. So the next thing was visual images. But then as I began to pray, I prayed over my daughter through the Bible. I've prayed over my son. Then I went to getting a Bible on American history, because my husband loves American history, and I thought it would be fun to pray through that as I learned things over him, so that our godly heritage here in the United States and how the United States began would become a part of our godly heritage in our family. And I prayed through that over my husband. Well, when I was in seminary, I wanted a different Bible, but I needed to grow in my leadership. And I ended up picking up the John C. Maxwell Leadership Bible. And the principles that he pulled out and his little helps in that particular Bible helped me to grow in leadership. And I started praying those leadership principles into my life and into my husband's life and into my children. And then when I took the position as the Dean of Women at Grace University, I felt very strongly that I was to pray over Grace as I was there through the Bible. And I ended up praying through 2 entire Bibles over the 5.5 years I was there. I slowed down. I didn't do it in a year. And in those Bibles, the first one I did was the Apologetic Bible. I did that because I wanted my students and the people at Grace to have good, sound theology. And so I prayed from cover to cover for us to be a people who had good theology. So do you see how I actually started taking different Bible translations and different helps within the Bibles to help me to know how to pray for the people or the group of people or the person that I was praying for? Well, after Grace closed very fast and very unexpectedly, and I found myself without a job. And it was a very hard time, a very painful time, and I just needed time for myself to refuel. And at that time, I had picked up the Passion Bible. And what I loved about the Passion Translation is it got me out of the mindset of how I had read the Bible before, because it's written more from the common language of the people. It's more like poetry. I found that this particular translation ended up being a translation that ministered to my soul and my spirit in a poetic way. And so whenever I'm stressed or having a difficult time, I pick this one up. And do you see, I actually will write on the page, or here's one of my drawings, I'll actually write on the page that I'm working through in the Bible that I'm praying. I picked up the Passion Bible and I started praying through that one over me. This is also the one I pick up whenever I feel dry. And I have currently, I know this is crazy, I have 3 different ones that I'm praying through. So I have the Passion always that I pick up when I need, and I'm in a dry season. I no longer just do one text in a year. I kind of have many that I'm going through. For the last 2 years, and I'm almost done, I'm working through, you can see, the chronological day-by-day Bible. And this is more in the story form, in the order of how the Bible was written, rather than in book, chapter, and verse, the way it's divided up. And I have been praying for the internationals in my city, for the refugees, literally looking at what the Bible has to say from the perspective and examining it as I pray, and how to love well and serving people that are not like me in my community. And I've been praying through this one for a little over 2 years now, and really having special times with God. And as you can see on some of the pages, you see how I draw images to help me remember. This is about helping them to remember that God keeps a record of our tears, that even when it's hard for us, when we're in a new place, God knows and he's with us. So do you see how I took his character and I apply it to what the person might be going through in their context? The other Bible I'm currently praying through, I picked up again the John C. Maxwell. And my daughter recently got married, and so I am praying through this Bible over my son-in-law, Zach. And I'm just loving being able to think on his marriage to Michaela and the things that they're going to need as a couple. So as I look at the character of God and the people, I am then praying what I learn about God and the people, so that those character qualities are in my children. So I hope this helps you to get a little bit of an understanding of how it is to pray. Now, the big question is, somebody might ask is, that's nice, but how do you pray through like the Book of Leviticus? I'm like, that's pretty legit. I didn't know how to do that either. And I can honestly say, probably still don't. But what I did is I just said, God, you have it here because you want me to learn something from it. So what is it? And as I started reading, I realized these were principles to help us live well in community. So I started examining those passages and asking God, how does this apply to our community? And how might this be lived out today? So for example, when he goes into the importance of the cleansing for the priests before they go into the temple, I'm like, God, what does that look like for us today? Well, it's about having proper hygiene and proper respect and honor for that which is sacred. And so that is something that I can pray. So I take the concepts, the principles that I examine or I read, and then I turn them into a prayer. So I look at the character of God, the character of the people. I might look to see, are there promises that I need to be taking hold of? And how can I pray this promise into their lives or into my life? What are the principles that I see that God would like for me to live by? And how can I pray those principles into my life or into the life of the one I'm praying for? And then I also look to see if there are repetitions that are happening in the passage. Because if there are repetitions, that usually is a cue or a clue that that's important. And so I will use those to help me think through, maybe I should be praying about this as well. And if I see that there are character traits that are listed over and over, like in Romans about, perseverance and hope and gentleness and kindness or something, or the fruit of the Spirit, I will then pray for those to be a part of the person. I hope that helps you to think on how you too can pray through Scripture. I've been praying through Scripture since my daughter was in third grade over her, or through actually intentionally praying, not just over her, but many different people as well. And my daughter now is 24. So I have been practicing this spiritual discipline for a long time. And I would love to know how you engage Scripture and how you are praying through the Bible and what that might look like in your life and how God has used it to grow you. I know for myself, it's been the most transforming thing in reading the Word, because every day there's something that He reveals to me that I need, and the one I'm praying for, I can pray into their life. Shalom, y'all. God bless.